But another big test. Oh, I didn't even set up streaming hotkey on the other side. More things to fix up. More things to fix up. Uh-oh. Streaming on TikTok. He knows he must. I wonder. Yo, 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 what going on, Brother Maverick and my fellow brothers and sisters? As a friendly reminder, let's give the stream a thumbs up. Amen. Thank you, Brother Mike. I'm actually excited. It looks like, are we live? Are we live on Rumble? Yes, we are live on Rumble. Because here's the thing, guys. It is clear that I cannot trust YouTube to do the right thing. So I'm gonna have to put I gotta spread my eggs out some. You know what I mean? I gotta make sure. And let me see if I can even check Rumble right now, because it looks like I am
didn't
live.
Understand
but
that
kind of not live. It doesn't make sense, but I know I'll figure it out. So let's go to my content. Okay, so everything's here. Okay. I trust YouTube to do the right thing. But it is live, but it's acting kind of funky, honestly, which sucks. And then when we try to look at it, looks like the most I can do here is 1920 by 1080. So at the end, I'm going to just go ahead and it still says sending data, though. That's the thing. That's the thing that's kind of weird to me. But we'll see what ends up happening. I'll give it some time. And then we'll go from there, because I know 1440p streaming is, and now it says it's offline and sending data. Yeah, so we're gonna have to see what's going on with that. I don't know. Let's check my TikTok. Let's see how that looks, guys. Because it doesn't say that I'm live either. Athena! Athena! Do you show me as live on TikTok, mommy? Because it doesn't look like it's live there either, and it might be a thing. It might be a weird thing with like the titling or something like that. You'll call in Senor Cinema. Sounds good. I am live?
Yeah.
Oh, it didn't show live on my thing.
Yeah, 32.
Nice. Okay, cool. So we are live. Hey, what up? Smooth Ride, you see me? All right, cool. No, you see me, but I want to make sure I was live on TikTok because unfortunately, even though I have, so it shows me your Athena. I want to see if my daughter can tell me. I'm sorry, mommy. Can you chat in TikTok? Just say something to see if it pops up, because I want to know if when people chat, I don't want to ignore them on TikTok or let them think. Welcome, brother Senor. You're an atheist? You go ahead and call in. You are welcome to call in. Let's go ahead and read today's verse of the day from 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 27. But God chose the foolish things of the world to shame the wise. God chose the weak things of the world to shame the strong. Which means what, guys? The cross is such an offensive symbol when viewed in its most basic and raw form. From 1 Corinthians 1, 18 through 24. For God to allow himself to become human flesh and live among us is unbelievable enough. For God to be willingly subjected to the vagaries and the rigors of mortality and human needs in Christ is unthinkable. For God in Christ to endure the indignities and inhumanities of the cross is preposterous. That, however, is the gospel truth. What appears to be foolish, weak, and offensive. Oh, you know what? Let me. It'll probably help if you guys can see what I was looking at, right? Hang on. Go here. I think you guys can see there. Live screen. There we go. When we come to the cross and resurrection of Jesus, we come to the impossible, which was made possible and accomplished by God's grace for us and in us. In Jesus, his death on the cross. Only God would bring us salvation in such a way. Here's a prayer, guys. If you want to pray with me, you are welcome to pray with me as usual. Thank you. Thank you, Athena. Holy and gracious Father, I know that the cross may seem silly and foolish to some people. I know some people who wear the cross as a symbol and don't honor Christ for what he did upon the cross. But Father, I confess that for me, Jesus' willingness to go to the cross is powerfully convicting and amazingly reassuring. You have captured my heart with your sacrificial love and sending Jesus to redeem me. Thank you for your gift and the grace of Jesus' willingness to endure and suffer for me. In his name I thank and pray and praise you. Amen. Amen and amen, guys. I think we have a caller in. Senor Cinema, welcome to the show, man. I don't know if he can hear me. It looks like he's muted. Okay, so he's in the show.
Hey, I can hear you. I'm sorry about that.
No, you're good.
I can hear you.
What's up, man? Welcome to the show. Appreciate you calling in.
Hey, what's up? So, I saw that this was like, you wanted atheists to call in or something?
Oh, anybody and everybody's welcome.
Okay, well, yeah, I'm an atheist.
Welcome.
So I think I'll just start with that. Yeah.
Okay. So what's going on? So what is it about the world or Christianity for that matter makes you want to choose atheism? And by the way, guys, before we set up, I want to say thank you to Senor Cinema, because a lot of guys, a lot of atheists and Christians alike are people who would rather sit there and make comments and try to make little hit and run comments in the comment section. And then that's pretty much it. But it does take a lot of intestinal fortitude to actually call into a show where, people have opposing views and you're willing to have that conversation. We say it's a debate, but it's really just a back and forth. It's not a formal debate, but you can call it that. So everybody here is going to be respectful. I don't assume that I'm going to be able to convince anybody that Jesus is the truth, the way, and the life, but I am here to plant seeds. So With that foundation laid out, Senor, to go ahead and give me what you got. If you have any questions, or if you wanted to, just if you are curious about Christianity, or you wanted to explain to us why you were an atheist, whatever you want, man.
Well, I'll just start with this. I used to be very religious.
Okay. What religion?
I believed Christianity.
Okay.
You know?
Okay.
Yeah. And I studied. I hear a lot of music in the background. I'm not sure.
Here, let me turn it down. All right, go ahead. You shouldn't hear it now. Do you
Okay,
still hear
my
it?
bad.
No, you're good.
Okay. I don't hear it anymore.
Okay, good.
Anyway, so yeah, I started looking. As you grow in your faith, you look for additional proofs. You study the history of the church, and you look at the historicity of the Gospels, and you go from there. You study the early church fathers, and you listen to what apologists have to say, and then you also read the other side, so that if somebody wants to come to you and maybe they aren't Christian, you want to maybe share Jesus Christ with them, your relationship with Jesus Christ with them. So I did those things, and I'll have to say that it's the historicity of the Gospels. That's what led me away to begin with, and then I started adopting more skeptical views about pretty much everything. And I realized that extraordinary claims require extraordinary proof.
Yeah.
And I didn't see any reason to believe in the gospel accounts of Jesus's miracles and the supernatural any more than other ancient texts that mention other figures that made miracles or performed miracles or did X, Y, and Z. If I'm going to dismiss Pythagoras's followers from them saying that Pythagoras went around healing people and performing miracles, then I think I ought to do the same with Jesus.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. So and I really do appreciate that. Thank you so much for sharing that, Mr. Cinema. And you know what? Unfortunately, it's not the first time that I've heard something like that. And to be completely honest with you guys, and just so you know, the way that I do business here is I adopted. I don't know if you ever heard of William Lane Craig, but a long time ago, when what he said is that when he has these conversations, he has like these things called briefs, right? Which is basically any documentation that contains his sources or whatever. And I found that when I had these conversations, that makes it a lot easier for me because there are just so many things and it's easy to get off topic. So I always have, at this point, probably hundreds of documents that can address, because let's be clear, when you're talking about whether it be Christianity, Islam, atheism, whatever it is, the conversations rarely ever take a direction outside of the normal circles, if that makes sense. Like usually the subject matter is always the same, whether it be objective morality, whether or not the Bible condones slavery. It's like always the same 5 or 10 subjects. Does that make sense? So
right.
When to refer to you, I actually did. This is one of the first conversations I had. So and honestly, I hear what you're saying. I'm not here to mock your journey at all, because I know that journeys in and of themselves are anecdotal. So I can't look through your eyes. I can't think with your mind, right? But if someone walks away from Christianity claiming there is no proof or historicity behind it, that usually means that the evidence wasn't either looked into or it wasn't looked into objectively. It was just looked into kind of already with this idea that I don't know, I'm already kind of doubting. And if you're looking at it with a skeptical eye, then you're not gonna. I can look at anything with a skeptical eye and say I'm not really gonna believe it. And of course, that's completely your choice. But the historical proof for Christianity, as far as the Gospels go, that is saying that the Gospels are historically reliable, are written upon the premise that they're written by eyewitnesses or close companions like Matthew, John, Mark, Peter's scribe, Luke, Paul's companion. And the Gospel of Luke contains 84 confirmed historical details in the last 16 chapters alone, according to archaeologist Sir William Ramsay, who started as a skeptic, much like yourself, and became a believer after studying the accuracy of the Gospel of Luke. Actually, Ramsey said, Luke is a historian of the first rank, not merely trustworthy, but among the very greatest of historians. Bullet point number 2, along those same lines, says that early dating confirms eyewitness testimony. So most scholars, including non-Christian ones, agree that 1, Paul's letters were written in the 50s AD or earlier. Luke and Acts were written by the early 60s AD. Mark is actually believed to have been written by the mid-50s to 60s AD, and that's all within one generation of Jesus' death. Paul actually quotes an early creed in 1 Corinthians 15, verses 3 through 7, that dates to within 3 to 5 years of the resurrection. Even atheist scholar Gerd Ludman, I don't know if you've ever heard of him, admits that that is actually historically valid. And went on to say the elements in the tradition are to be dated to the first 2 years after the crucifixion, not later than 3 years. Another point that I usually like to cite is that outside non-Christian sources confirm the basics. Now, I'm going to stop myself there because I know that a lot of times atheists have this thing where they like to try to say, well, you know what? I don't believe the Bible. You know, if we're going to talk, we have to talk outside of the Bible. Now, here's the thing. I would never say to anybody, you guys have to prove to me things that I want to hear, but they have to be through sources that I approve. Absolutely not. I don't do that. I don't believe in stepping outside of the Bible to prove the Bible. I know that atheists find that necessary for obvious reasons, but I won't sit there and say also that there are not a plethora of extra biblical sources that do validate the Gospels and Jesus Christ and his life as a historical figure and blah, blah, blah. And we're not talking the Bible. We're talking about like outside sources, like outside, right? We got and we have Tacitus, who was a Roman historian, who wrote Annals in AD 116, which confirmed Jesus was executed under Pontius Pilate. You had Josephus, who was a Jewish historian, who wrote the Book of Antiquities, and he writes about Jesus as a wise teacher who was crucified and believed to be resurrected. And we have Pliny the Younger, who was a Roman governor from AD 112, who describes Christians as worshiping Jesus as to a god. We have Lucian of Samosata. I can never say that right. Samosata, who was from Greece, that actually mocks Christians for worshiping a crucified man, which basically, when he was trying to be mean, basically, and he accidentally confirmed the core of the gospel by saying, these peoples are a bunch of idiots. They're worshiping somebody who was actually crucified, which back then, a crucifixion was looked at as one of the most shameful things that could happen to a person. You actually had the Babylonian Talmud, who refers to Jesus as being hanged, which was a common reference to crucifixion. Now, these sources were all hostile to Christianity, so they had no reason to make it up. But again, that once more, when people say, well, you can't use the Bible to prove the Bible, well, there's plenty of sources outside of the Bible.
Well, can I just stop you real quick?
Of course.
Because because you said a lot, and I wanted to respond to some of the things. I'm not claiming that I don't believe Jesus Christ existed.
Okay.
I'm saying that the supernatural events in the Bible and the miracles associated to Christ could have been mythologized. Like I believe that there was a real historical Jesus, and I believe that his followers mythologized him in the same way that they mythologized Julius Caesar or Pythagoras or other ancient figures like that, like ancient people back in that time. It was part of like their, I don't know if you want to say customs or culture or whatever, but to take a very important person and then to exaggerate details about them, about their great deeds, to make them even better than they were. Mentioned
I'm sorry, your pop, Senor Cinema. We lost him. I'm hoping he comes back because it sounds like we lost him. Is he back? Yeah, it was like he was under. Yeah, okay, yeah, it sounded like you were underwater, and then you just kind of you bashed out. Can you hear me?
Oh, my bad. Yeah,
no,
yeah,
you're fine.
I'm not saying that early Christians didn't exist, and that they didn't believe in Jesus, or that they didn't preach that Jesus resurrected.
Mhm.
All I'm saying is that the overwhelming majority of early Christians were not eyewitnesses. And then of the Gospels that you mentioned, only 2 of them were eyewitnesses. You have Mark, who was Peter's disciple,
Mhm.
and you had Luke, who you said worked with Paul, right? Yeah, I don't see that as being enough evidence to prove the resurrection or the miracles. I find it very similar to like the Book of Mormon, or perhaps Tales of the Buddha, or the Persians talked about Zarathustra, being a great man and a holy man and doing great deeds, or Muhammad splitting the moon in half. Do you see where I'm coming with this? If I'm going to be as skeptical about other religions, then I had to apply that to my own, which is why I'm an atheist now.
Well, so what you said about the eyewitnesses was false, starting there. Matthew was one of the 12 apostles, a former tax collector who followed Jesus personally. And John not only walked with Jesus, he was in the inner circle. I'm not sure where you're getting the information that...
No, that's what I'm saying.
Right.
No. I said Matthew and John were the 2 that were actual eyewitnesses. Luke and Mark were not.
So Mark was the scribe and the close companion of Peter, right? One of Jesus' closest apostles.
But Mark himself was not an apostle.
Right.
Mark never claimed to have met Jesus.
So
right. Neither did Luke.
Okay, so scribe. So you're saying that because they scribed it, it means that you're saying that the eyewitness account of the person who said this is what happened wasn't true.
I'm saying that I'm skeptical about that.
Okay, so you're skeptical of it. So it doesn't. But you have to understand your skepticism of it doesn't, because you do understand that back then that's exactly how historians wrote credible biographies in the ancient world. He may not have seen it himself, but he compiled it from those who did, just like a modern journalist or documentarian. So you could say, so I understand what you're saying. Okay, well, they didn't see it themselves, but somebody who saw it went and said, listen, I need you to scribe this because this is exactly what happened. And this is what I saw. Not to mention the fact that you went back and you said, well, you don't believe in miracles, but now you're talking about eyewitnesses who were willing to die for what they saw. So the disciples didn't just claim miracles.
Wait. Let's stop there. Who is willing to die?
So are you saying that they didn't die for what they saw?
I'm saying that the early Christians, the majority of them that were persecuted, were not eyeyewitnesses.
Okay.
I'm saying that.
But that's not what I asked.
Of the apostles,
I said right. Okay. So let's stay on topic.
But I am. I'm saying the apostles themselves, the eyewitness apostles themselves. We have good evidence that Peter was martyred for his faith, right? And I think it was James, but the rest of them, the accounts of their martyrdom comes from hundreds of years after they supposedly died, which leads me to believe that I can't find those accounts of their martyrdom credible. Maybe 2 of them were martyred legitimately. You know what I mean?
So okay, great. I'm actually glad you brought that up. First of all, so you're saying that they didn't. All right. So Peter was crucified upside down by Clement of Rome, right? So you're saying that
the upside down part, that's likely apocryphal, but he was martyred. Yes.
Okay. So you're saying that you don't believe that it actually happened because it supposedly the proof or the sources or the documentation of those torturings coming later on supposedly means that you were skepticism?
No. I believe that Peter was martyred. I don't believe that. Okay, let me put it this way. I don't believe that he was killed. Like they gave him a choice, like recant your testimony or be martyred. I think he was killed because he was a disruptor, right? In the same way that this is why I also believe Jesus was killed, like to keep the peace in society. You know what I mean?
But that doesn't
given an opportunity to recant.
So okay, but you don't need. What opportunity do you need to recant? So you're saying that at some point it wasn't because they didn't want to; they were just killed so fast they didn't. So you're telling me they were tortured to the point where It was so quick that none of them, it never occurred to any of them to say, man, you know what? I'm lying about this. This didn't really happen. That's what you're saying.
I'm saying they would not have been given the opportunity. Like, it wouldn't have mattered to the Romans whether or not they said, oh, I'm lying or not. It wouldn't have mattered to them.
It wouldn't have mattered. It wouldn't have mattered to them, but it's absolutely ridiculous for you to insinuate that if one person, even one of them, wouldn't have tried to recant it, it wouldn't have been recorded. There's no way that you can actually believe that nobody would have recorded that.
But early Christians did renounce their faith.
They renounced the faith.
Plenty of them did.
So what Christians are you saying renounced their faith? That they're saying, are you saying that they're insinuating that the resurrection didn't happen?
I'm saying that early Christians, this is like the heresy of Donatism, right? It's like a bunch of bishops and early Christians, said, hey, I'm no longer Christian, and then they came back to the church.
I can't hear you. I don't know if you're still here, but you're fading out again. Bless you. I don't know if you're still here. Yeah, I don't know. I see him here, guys, but he's gone. Some of the disciples were not educated in reading and writing. Correct, Cadillac. Hello, brothers. Yeah, I can hear you now.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hey, I'm sorry about that.
You're fine. Called me. That's fine. So here, before we go on and on, the last thing that you said was that a bunch of Christians. So I have a couple of points that I'm going to make here. I'm going to get through all of them, and then I'm going to let you respond with however you want to respond. So your first claim was that a bunch of early Christians renounced their faith. All right, that's not only false; it's the opposite of what historical records show. Okay, so early Christians were known for their unwavering boldness, especially under torture. Pliny the Younger in 112 AD, a Roman governor wrote to Emperor Trajan asking how to handle Christians who refused to deny Christ even when threatened with torture and death. He said, end quote, I interrogated them. Those who persisted, I ordered executed. That's not recantation. That's resilient faith in the face of death. Tertullian in 197 AD said, the blood of the martyrs is the seed of the church. Why? Because the more Rome killed Christians, the more the faith exploded. And thousands of early Christians, if thousands of early Christians were recanting left and right, the movement would have collapsed immediately of Jesus Christ. Now, it wouldn't have grown. First of all, it definitely wouldn't have grown across continents. Bullet point number. Oh, stop. I said I was going to finish what I was going to say. Hold on. I'm going to get through it because what happens is you respond and I respond. So I'm going to make the claims. If you want to write them down because you made a bunch of claims and I'm going to respond to all of them. The church fathers confirm the courage of the believers under persecution. This guy's name is Eusebius. I never say his name right, but his name is spelled Eusebius. Eusebius, something like that. Writing in the early 300s, compiling earlier 2nd century sources, tells of Polycarp, who was a disciple of the Apostle John, who was burned alive in AD 155. Roman officials begged him to recant. And what was his response? 86 years I have served him, and he has done me no wrong. How can I blaspheme my king and my savior? That's not cowardice, that's loyalty. And then the second and even bigger claim that you made was that the apostles were tortured and didn't have time to recant. Here's a news flash for everybody who said, okay, is that a possibility? They had plenty of time, and not a single one recanted. They suffered overtime, and none of them had an instant execution. So we're going to be clear. Most of the apostles weren't killed immediately. They were imprisoned, they were beaten, tortured, and exiled. Some of them for years. Now, if you're telling me that years is not enough time to recant, I have no idea how long someone needs to utter a few words.
What happened?
Paul endured multiple imprisonments and wrote much of the New Testament from a prison cell, never once wavering in his testimony of the resurrection. And you can reference that in 2 Corinthians 11, 23 through 28. Peter was arrested. He was in prison and still preached boldly. His letters show no fear, no regret, and no backing down. John was exiled to Patmos, and he was not executed, had plenty of time the rest of his life to change his story. Instead, he gave us the book of Revelation. They weren't executed in a sudden blaze. They were persecuted over time, and all they had to do was say, okay, we made it up, but none of them did that. So here's the bottom line when it comes down to that supposed that assertion that it just happened and they didn't have a chance. Early Christians stood strong, and history proves it time and again. You had literal officials begging their bosses and saying, what do? We can't get them to recant this story because no matter what we do, they refuse to recant the resurrection. The apostles had plenty of time to backpedal, and they never did. There's zero evidence of a mass recantation and tons of evidence of radical loyalty. The claim that they recanted under pressure is not history. It's wishful thinking by people who basically can't handle the truth that Jesus really rose from the dead. Now, you go ahead and you respond however you want.
Okay. So why do you think the Gospels were written?
Of everything okay, so you made a claim. You said that the disciples and other Christians didn't recant because they didn't have time. I've given you historical documentation stating that what you said was 100% false. It is now your chance to rebuttal and say.
Yes, I know. I'm beginning my rebuttal with a question. I'm asking you, why do you think that the Gospels were written?
Because they obviously felt that it was important.
They felt that it was important because they wanted to spread the message to other people, and have a recording of what they believed, correct?
Yes. Of what they saw, not what they believed, of what they witnessed.
That's what I'm trying to get at, is that a lot of this information that we have about the apostles comes from, Christians writing about themselves and people that they know. Like, wouldn't it make sense for them to bolster themselves, to make themselves appear better in a better light, to show that they're unwavering?
So the more that you're talking, I'm going to answer your question.
Telephone game.
I already know where you're going with the telephone game. If you want me to dismantle that live, I will. But here's the problem with what you're saying. You're saying that you want people that people are recording things to make themselves look good. Now, here's my thing with that, Cinema, and I'm in no way am I trying to be inflammatory towards you, okay? But for somebody who's actually read the Bible, if you read that story, or what I like to call the love letter from God to us, if you can read that and actually think that those details about the disciples and the apostles who are that are constantly being humiliated, that are constantly doing insane things where Jesus is checking them like children, if you think that those things were recorded to make them look good, then it shows me that you have never, ever actually read the Bible. Because there's nothing at all about being Christian that bolstered the reputation or nothing. I mean, why would you say this happened? One of these guys got skinned alive. Another guy got boiled in oil. And you're telling me that they did it to bolster themselves?
Wait. So that's what I'm talking about, is that you keep citing these examples of, like, the apostles being martyred, but, like, the actual historical evidence for the burning alive and the flaying of the skin is really bad. It comes from 400, 500, sometimes even 700 years after they died. Like, you ought not to use these examples. Now, Peter, that's a good example. Use that. You could talk about Paul's martyrdom, but even Paul did not witness Jesus while alive. Paul had a vision, right? Or an experience, if you want to call it that. He heard a loud voice, or he saw something, but he didn't experience what Peter did. You get what I'm saying? So I don't really take Paul's account to be much, because he wasn't an eyewitness. I wouldn't consider him an eyewitness. I would consider Peter to be an eyewitness. I would consider the 12 apostles to be eyewitnesses. But regardless of about early Christians dying for their faith, the 9/11 hijackers died for their faith. Mormons died for their faith. There's a bunch of people throughout history that are willing to believe whatever, and they believe it with fervor. It doesn't prove the claim, though.
Okay, so I'm going to address that, and I'm going to right out tell you that you keep repeating a lie. All right. you say that the core records of the apostles' deaths come from hundreds of years later, when the core records for the apostles' deaths come from 1st and 2nd century sources, many written by disciples of the apostles themselves. Clement of Rome, 95 AD. Ignatius of Antioch, 110 AD. Polycarp, 110 to 155 AD. I can't even say this guy's name. It's spelled Hegesippus. I would say Hegesippus from 160 AD. Josephus from 93 AD. Tertullian from 197 AD. Where you're getting these numbers from 600 or 700 years later are completely made up. And here's another thing that I'm going to point out, because I'm, like I said, when you guys come in here, I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. I am the only one at this point that has named even anything remotely historical, given any time frames, given any names, or any historical documentation whatsoever. You continue to say these things happened, this didn't happen, this doesn't happen, but you have not yet once provided any source of proof or documentation or history to say, hey, this didn't happen right. This didn't happen the way you're saying. You're just making those assertions with absolutely no proof whatsoever.
I'm going to respond.
So while he figures out how he's going to respond and rewrite history, guys, we have Clement of Rome from 95 AD, who is a 1st century source. Clement, one of the earliest Christian writings outside of the New Testament, speaks clearly about Peter and Paul's martyrdom. Because of jealousy and envy, the greatest and most righteous pillars, Peter and Paul, were persecuted and contended unto death. Clement personally knew the apostles. He was the disciple of Peter and Paul. That's less than 30 years after their deaths, not hundreds. Ignatius of Antioch, early 2nd century source, a direct disciple of Apostle John. All right. On his way to execution, he wrote 7 letters affirming suffering and martyrdom for the faith. In his letters, he confirms the resurrection of Christ and the bold witness of the apostles under persecution. That's not myth building. That's a 1st generation believer upholding the courage of the apostles. I don't know if Mr. Cinema's back yet. Polycarp from
I'm back.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
I mute myself when you're talking.
No, go ahead. I'm giving you a chance to respond.
I'm just talking about like biblical scholars, right? I'm saying what the consensus is as far as like biblical research, and you're fine to disagree with that. A lot of people do. I'm just saying that the consensus amongst biblical scholars is that the accounts of the martyrdom of the apostles are not on equal footing.
You said, hold on. You said that the consensus among biblical scholars is that what?
That all the apostles were martyred. That's not a consensus. I'm sorry. The consensus is that not all of them were martyred. That's the consensus.
Were not martyred?
I'm sorry. I'm getting nervous.
You're
consensus, fine. Yeah, is that not all of the accounts of their martyrdom are on equal footing. Like there's higher probabilities of certain apostles being martyred for their faith,
right?
Because we have better evidence for some than others. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying that some of the others that you mentioned, like the boiling alive and the flaying of the skin, a lot of those come from sources that are from way after.
Right, but I just proved that was not true, and I gave you the years and I gave you the names of the people.
Well, I mean, if you don't mind, I'm going to concede this historical aspect.
I don't mind at all.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I don't see any reason to believe in anything other than the material world. I don't see how we can get to believing in a supernatural world, or that the world was created, or that spirits exist, or that we have souls, or anything that is not atoms and physical or energy. You know what I mean? I think knowing truth, right?
Yeah.
It's something that a lot of the cosmological arguments infer things, and I don't think that's enough to convince me.
And you know what? And unfortunately, Brother Cinema, I think that what you're suffering from spiritually is what can be found in 2 Corinthians 4:4, which states, in their case, the God of this world has blinded the minds of unbelievers so that they cannot see the light of the gospel of the glory of Christ, who is in the image of God. And unfortunately, the thing about it is, Cinema, is that I think that your quest for truth, and I don't know you. I don't know you, right? I can tell you just from speaking to you that I like you. You're respectful. I can tell that I feel like your thirst for truth is legit, right? I honestly do. I don't think that you have any surreptitious molds behind your search. But the crazy thing is, and I can tell you this from experiences, that when I went through the same journey that you did, I came to the opposite conclusion, right? And I know that the last claim that you made was that the consensus among biblical scholars is that the apostles were not martyred, or that they're not on equal footing, right? But from my experience, the consensus is that at least several apostles absolutely were martyred. And
Wait. I agree with that. I agree that several of them were martyred.
Right.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying that because typically people say that like 11 of the 12 were martyred. And I don't think that somebody can make that kind of claim. Now, if you want to say 4 out of the 12 or 6 out of the 12, okay, well, maybe I'm with you there.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think it's fair to say that they all, because you did say earlier, all of them did not recant. All of them did not renounce their faith. And that was a little stickler kind of thing that I had. Mm-hmm. My bad.
No, you're fine. You're fine. So I can tell you guys, for anybody who's interested in listening, there are a lot of people who provide plenty of historical and archaeological evidence. And by the way, Cadillac, thank you so much for becoming a channel member. I appreciate you, man. God bless you. And thank you so much for the support, man. I did see that, but we were in the middle of a great conversation. So thank you guys so much. I just want to give you guys a couple of names and Cinema. If you're interested in looking at these two, please do. Dr. Sean McDowell, who has a PhD from Biola University, who is the author of The Fate of the Apostles, gives tons of historical documentation and archaeological proof about the martyrdom of the 12 disciples, as well as Dr. Gary Habermas from Liberty University, who is a leading resurrection scholar and respected even by skeptics. Dr. Bart Ehrman, who is an agnostic atheist scholar, says we have good historical evidence that Peter and Paul were both martyred in Rome under Nero. That is the view of virtually all scholars in early Christianity. So that goes more to your point. So even Ehrman, he acknowledges, and I know what you're saying. There's going to be a lot of scholars who are not going to say, okay, this is all going to be, on the up and up, because no two people are going to agree about everything. The problem is that you have to look at the way that history is written, right? The way that things look. So here, let me give you guys an example. And these are, again, this is in my journey how I have found things. And I understand where you're coming from, Cinema, because you should question and challenge information that you get, right?
I mean, especially in the Bible where it says, like, if the resurrection did not happen, we're like worse than dead. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah. Right. yeah. That's for sure. I mean, but here's the thing, guys. Even skeptics, and I think Cinema showed that and illustrated that clearly. If there was no resurrection, and there is an afterlife, and it's based on what the biblical standard is about being a sinner, we're all screwed. We are all screwed. No matter what, we're all doomed to be cast into the darkness for eternity, because we all fall short. Okay. But I want to give you guys, and again, Cinema, I don't know if you're gonna get anything from this or not, but so when you look at history, like verified archaeology through respected scholars, right? And you look at the death of Peter, who was crucified upside down, that's verified by Clement Tertullian and Origen, 230 AD, 197 AD, and 95 AD. Paul, not one of the 12.
You're dismissing the possibility that they could have been mistaken as to Jesus' resurrection. I mean, didn't the Gospels and some other accounts in the Bible claim or say that Jesus appeared to be different?
He did. When he first resurrected, it said that he appeared the way that he appeared. They couldn't recognize him.
They could not recognize him. Mm-hmm. Correct. Right. So there's also a naturalistic hypothesis.
Hi, baby.
That
the heater's going on.
Okay.
Cold.
Okay. Go ahead. I'm listening.
Okay. There's also a naturalistic hypothesis that you can have grief-induced hallucinations.
But not by that many people at once. It's actually proven
Why
that.
Why not? I mean, are you familiar with the miracle at Fatima, the apparition of the Virgin Mary in Portugal?
No, I'm
where
not.
500,000 people apparently saw Mary, the Mother of God.
Well, I don't believe in Mary as the mother of God. Tell me a little bit about it.
Well, I'm just saying, like, you have other accounts of people that claim to have seen things that you don't believe in. So you don't believe that Mary's the Mother of God. You don't believe in the apparition of Fatima. There's way more evidence for the apparition of Fatima than there is for the resurrection.
Mm-hmm.
If anything, you should be a Catholic.
I'm not a Catholic. I don't understand how you're connecting the 2 points.
What I'm saying is like the epistemology that you're using to see whether or not certain things are believable or credible based on testimony, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have far more testimonies backing up Catholic miracles than we have anything else.
Mm-hmm.
So why aren't you Catholic?
So, well, you have to name specific supposed Catholic miracles.
Okay, Lourdes, Fatima. There's Eucharistic miracles. There's accounts of saints healing people. Saint Francis of Assisi had the stigmata. So did Padre Pio. A bunch of people. I mean, I don't believe in any of them.
I don't either.
You don't believe in any of them.
Mm-hmm.
But what I'm saying is, if you're gonna use the same kind of like historicity to back up like the biblical claims, so we have much more recent texts that prove other religions' miracles. You know what I mean? And you don't believe in them. So if I'm going to use the same kind of method to determine whether or not these miracles occurred, or if there's a reason to believe in the supernatural, it seems to me that you might ought to be Catholic.
So again, I keep calling it cinema. You say these things happen, this happened, we have proof, we have text, but you're not naming or citing any of it. You're just saying we have.
I did. I said Fatima. I said Lourdes. I said
right. But what text and documentation are you providing that states that those things actually happened, that they were proven? For example, let's back up because you're jumping all over the place. All right. The original claim was that let's back up, because the foundation of your claim was that the resurrection could have been just a mass hallucination, right? Now, here's the truth about that.
It could have been a mass hallucination. It could have been, the gospel writers. If you adopt the idea that actually they weren't written by the people that they said were written by, that if people assumed the identity of the eyewitnesses and wrote in their name in their stead, which happened all the time in antiquity, then it would follow that there's reason to believe that this is just myth making in its early stages.
Yeah, and that myth making would still.
If you start reading the Gospels in the order in which they were written, it's kind of seems like each successive gospel is embellishing upon the previous one. So we have Mark, who there's not that. I mean, there are accounts of miracles, but not as many as in John, not as many as in Luke. You get what I'm saying?
I get what you're saying, but you're confusing, and see, that's the first time I've actually heard it from that angle, because usually what people say is that there's contradictions because it doesn't say exactly the same thing. But see, if the Gospels said exactly the same thing, then you guys would accuse them of being forgeries anyway. So because eyewitness testimony and because different perspectives don't line up, because different perspectives never have lined up in human history, I can go to my kids right now, I can do a backflip in front of two of my kids and ask them exactly what happened, and they're going to give me probably the same story, but slightly different details, because no two people see things the same. So now you're claiming that, well, if you read them in the order they were written in, they're embellishing off one another. That makes absolutely no sense. But here, let's go back to the foundation of your claim that the resurrection was a mass hallucination. And here's the truth of the matter, because again, I have researched this a lot, and I do mean a lot, because this is probably one of the most popular non-believing arguments. And the fact of the matter is that group hallucinations are psychologically impossible. And the resurrection accounts do not fit any hallucination profile. And this has been studied throughout not only the centuries by psychologists, but modern day psychologists as well. And hallucinations are private. No, first of all, hallucinations have always been private. They're to your mind, to the synonymous mind. They're not shared by anybody, okay? Dr. Gary Collins, a psychologist and founder of the American Association of Christian Counselors, said Hallucinations are individual occurrences. By their very nature, only one person can see a given hallucination at a time. They're not something which can be seen by a group of people. You don't share hallucinations like a Netflix account. If 500 people all saw the same Jesus at the same time, as it says in 1 Corinthians 15:6, that's not a hallucination, that's a public event. Too many different people. Hold on, stop. I'm gonna go through. I'm gonna go through the dissertation here, because you made a claim that I have lots of ways to dismantle. So again, too many different people, too many different places, and too many different times. Jesus appeared to Mary Magdalene when she was alone, 2 women at the tomb, 2 disciples at the road to Emmaus, which you alluded to when they didn't recognize him, the disciples with and without Thomas, 7 by the Sea of Galilee, 500 at once, which we just referred to, James, Jesus' own brother, who was a skeptic, mind you, okay, who later admitted that he saw him after he was crucified, Saul, who later became Paul on the road to Damascus after the ascension. These weren't in the same room, they weren't in the same mood or even the same geography. There's no psychological model where multiple people in different emotional states and locations all have the same hallucination of a resurrected person they could all describe. And hallucinations don't explain the empty tomb. If you ever wanted to pretend all those people just imagine Jesus, then where was his body? The tomb was publicly known, which can be referenced in Matthew chapter 27, 62 through 66. Jewish and Roman leaders never ever produced the body, no matter how much they wanted to, because they couldn't, and a hallucination doesn't remove a first century Roman sealed corpse. The empty tomb plus eyewitnesses' appearances plus changed lives absolutely destroys the hallucination theory.
Unless it was made up, unless the empty tomb was part of mythologizing the story.
That had there was no reason for the Romans and the Pharisees, the leaders of the Jewish community, to make themselves look stupid like that. That's what you're not understanding. It's not just the biblical events.
No. What you're not understanding is that it makes perfect sense for early Christians to make the Romans and the Pharisees look stupid in their book. You see, the thing is that if you in the first century, if you're a crucified person, you don't get private burial. They wouldn't give you that. They wouldn't give you a tomb. The Joseph of Arimathea thing. What? They would have put you in a mass grave with all the other criminals.
That's not what they did with. No, that's not how they buried people from crucifixion. Have you researched this at all?
Yeah, yes, I have. I mean, listen, I'm not calling your I'm not calling into question your knowledge. You know, you've done so a few times with me, and I don't know. It's just that I don't appreciate it.
Well, well, here's the thing, though.
We have found mass graves of people that have the nails right by them. We have these things. We've seen them. We have archaeological evidence of them.
Right. Okay. I mean, that's fine. Okay. So here's the thing, though. That argument crumbles fast when you bring in actual Roman history, and on top of that, Jewish burial customs, because the gospel accounts. Well, here, let's hit it from all sides. You said that Jesus would not have been buried in a tomb after crucifixion because Romans left bodies to rot. Now, here's the thing. Roman and Jewish practices in the first century Jerusalem make it entirely plausible and even expected that Jesus would not have been buried in a tomb, especially under the unique circumstances. The Gospels align with Roman and Jewish custom. All 4 Gospels state that Jesus was buried in a tomb, owned by Joseph of Arimathea, who was a respected member of the Jewish council. Now, remember, this is one of the Pharisees who wanted Jesus dead. Now, that's not a made-up name. If it were fiction, they wouldn't name a high-profile man that everyone could verify. As a matter of fact, in Mark 15, 43 through 46, it says Joseph boldly asked Pilate for Jesus' body. Okay? Joseph, the Jew, asked Pilate for Jesus' body, and Pilate granted it, which matches known Roman legal policy. Bodies could be released to family or prominent citizens upon request. Even Philo and Josephus, both first-century historians, confirm that in Judea, under Roman rule, Jewish burial customs were respected, especially in relation to the Sabbath. Now remember, Jesus' crucifixion was a conspiracy between the Jewish elders of their community and the Roman Empire, because the Jewish did not have the right. They did not have the authority to discipline people or to practice law enforcement on those people. They had to go to the Roman Empire. But Josephus, and you can reference this in Jewish Wars 4.5.2, speaks of the Jews ensuring even criminals receive proper burial, because Jesus was a Jewish man that was even referred to as rabbi. Philo of Alexandria, Flaccus 10, says it was the custom for Roman authorities in Judea to allow burial of crucified bodies, especially to appease Jewish sensitivities. Roman law under Digesta 48.24 confirms it, that the bodies of those who have been punished should be given to whoever requests them for burial. So the idea that no crucified person was buried is completely dead wrong. And why Jesus' burial was unique but plausible is that Jesus died before sundown, and Jewish law in Deuteronomy 21, 22, and 23 required bodies not remain hanging overnight. The next day was not just a Sabbath, it was Passover. The Jews were hyper careful about corpse defilement before high holy days. Joseph of Arimathea requests aloud Jesus to be buried hastily in a rock cut tomb nearby, which explains why the women came later to finish the burial process. Not only is it plausible, it's exactly what you'd expect if and only if you know the culture. But here's the worst part for your argument. Even critics acknowledge the burial account is strong. John A.T. Robinson, who is a liberal scholar, okay? The burial of Jesus is one of the earliest and best attested facts about Jesus. James D.J. Dunn, the burial by Joseph of Arimathea is one of the best attested traditions. Gary Habermas and Michael Licona, in The Case for the Resurrection, the burial account passes the test of multiple independent sources, is unlikely to be legendary, and is consistent with known customs of the time. So the bottom line for all of that, because where you're coming from is like, well, Jesus would have just been thrown in with everybody else, like he was one of these guys from Greece or one of these, homeless people from Rome, but he wasn't. He was a Jewish rabbi whose body was requested by the Jewish elders known as the Pharisees. Romans did allow burials, especially in Judea. Jewish law required quick burial before sundown. Historical sources outside the Bible confirm that it happened, and even non-Christian scholars admit that the burial narrative is solid history. Sorry, brother.
Well, Bart Ehrman takes the position that the Joseph of Arimathea business is likely untrue. So I'm familiar with Gary Habermas and Michael Kona. I'll look into it some more. But I still don't see any proof of the supernatural existing.
Well,
I just think that this world is it,
And I respect. Listen, I respect what you believe. At the end of the day, obviously we disagree, but when it comes down to it, brother Cinema, when you make a claim about these things, you have to understand that these are things that I have researched, and I'm not in no way am I trying to say that I'm not trying to insult your intelligence or anything like that, but I always try to tell people in my chat, be extraordinarily careful about what you listen to and who you listen to, because when it comes down to it, no matter what, you're in a situation where one day, and I know just like you think that there's nothing, the way that you think that there's nothing, I know that there's something. I'm not going to sit here and dox myself and tell you what I've been through in my life, but I can guarantee and promise you that Jesus walks with me daily. I can guarantee and promise you that he listens to me always.
Well, how do you know that? How do you know that it's not just your own mind doing the heavy lifting and that you just want to believe this? How do you know that it's actually Jesus? Because
when I didn't follow Jesus, when I didn't have a real relationship with him, my life was a living hell. It wasn't only until I actually started a relationship with Christ that nobody forced upon me, is that when I actually started seeing things for what they really were, when I actually started seeing things and that spiritual blindness was lifted up off of me, as I alluded to earlier. And I can't sit there and tell you, well, how do you know? Well, I can tell you because I can add one and one. I know what my life was before Jesus Christ, and I know what it was after. And then you multiply that by over 1 billion times for people who actually say, yes, I know what my life is like with Jesus Christ, and I know what it's like without him. So the thing about it is, man, is that when it comes down to it, we can talk about the historicity of Christianity. We can talk about the historical events. We can talk about you not believing in miracles because you don't see them. But here's the problem. If it's something that you're never refusing to acknowledge, the medical miracles that happen every single day, especially in a world that's so fallen where so many tragic things happen every single day, of course you're not going to see it because you don't want to.
Well, here's the thing. No. Here's the thing. So I'm fully open to God appearing before me.
But he doesn't owe that to you.
That.
But he doesn't owe you that.
Why
You see what I'm saying?
Because he did it to Paul.
He did it to Paul because he did it at that time and he found it necessary. But he's not a vending machine, brother. He doesn't owe you anything. You wouldn't even be alive if it wasn't for him.
If God loved everybody, and the way to heaven is belief in Jesus Christ, and he has all of us are his children, right? He desires us to go to heaven and worship him and be good people, right? If there is somebody that's unconvinced, right, wouldn't God need to convince that person? Wouldn't God, wouldn't the loving thing to do would be to prove himself to everybody so that there's no mystery anymore? It's not a guessing game. We don't even have to talk about historicity of the Gospels anymore. We can just talk about, oh, wow, we all had this experience. We all can share on it. Okay, now we can all be Christian. And if people don't want to believe because maybe they're against God, then that's up to them. But at least it would get rid of the whole historicity problem.
So essentially what you're saying is you want him to violate your free will so that you can believe.
Well, no. I'm saying he could prove himself to me. At least then I know he exists.
Right. But so now he's violating your free will.
I can't have a relationship with something that I'm not sure exists.
Correct. Okay. So here, I get why you think that, but that actually misunderstands how God works, right? And I'm going to explain. That's not how love operates. And that's not even what real faith actually is, okay? If God had to appear physically to prove his love, that would override free will and reduce him to a performer, not a savior. Let's start there. It's not love
God did, but according to the Bible, God did appear physically.
Correct, and I'm gonna get
a period of time.
Right, and I'm gonna get to that. I'm gonna get to that. So the thing is, God can appear to everybody, and now but that's what you're essentially saying. You want him to do all the heavy lifting. Oh well, there's God. Now we have to believe in him. Guess what? What that's going to do is that's going to cause people to come to God that ordinarily would not have wanted to come to God. And they'd be now loving him and changing their lives, something that they ordinarily wouldn't have done. Why would God force people to do it?
That's not forcing.
That is forcing.
Still deny God.
No,
it's not.
If God stands before you in all his glory,
deny them the free will.
If God stands before you, if we're talking about the same God,
all God needs to do is just show up.
Right. And again, but you're saying the same thing.
All God needs to do is show up and appear. He doesn't need to force anybody to worship him or not.
That act.
Hey, here I am.
That act in and of itself is going to
the correct way.
Yeah. So here's the thing. That act in and of itself. No, you're fine. If you believe that if you're talking about the same God that I'm talking about, and he reveals himself in all his glory, I find it comical that you think that he would appear in his full glory and any one human being could look at him and say, nope, still not doing it. That's what you're not understanding. God's glory is beyond comprehension. We can't even exist in his presence. I'm sorry?
Bro, Judas did.
Judas was next to Jesus Christ, which was God in human form. Jesus didn't see God the Father. Jesus walked with God the Son. A lot of people did. And Judas still exercised his free will, even watching the miracles that Jesus did, watching him resurrect Lazarus, watching him heal the sick, watching him give people their sight, and still decided to do what he was saying.
I'm just saying, he appeared to Moses. I mean, he wrestled with Jacob. He appeared to Paul. He even let Thomas, put his fingers through his wounds. Like,
yeah.
All I'm asking for is for him to do me a solid. Do the same thing that Thomas got. If he gives me that, then I'll believe in him.
Right. Well, here, there's a couple of things that I like to say. Number one, John 1:14, right, says that the word became flesh and dwelt among us, is what you were alluding to. And so essentially God already appeared, right? His name is Jesus Christ. He walked, taught, he healed, he loved us, and he proved his love on the cross. Now, if you want to see God, you can look at Christ crucified, rising from the dead, and changing lives for over 2,000 years. And that there are so many other ways to look at it, right? God isn't hiding from you. You're just not looking the right way. You don't want to. You want it easy. You want it there in front of your face. Oh, I'm God. Hey, how you doing? Make sure you believe in me so that you can be with me forever, right? Look, you can look to the fine-tuning of the universe, the coded language of DNA, the moral law in your heart, and the empty tune are all screaming his name. Those are just a handful of examples. The fact that you hold on, stop. Right, okay. But the fact that you even asked this question proves something. You're wired to want meaning, love, and truth. And where do you think that comes? So here's the bottom line. Here's what it comes down to. God doesn't need to appear to you like a genie to prove he's real. He's already spoken through creation, through scripture, and most of all through Jesus Christ. And here's the real truth. He will appear to everyone one day. But by then, it'll be too late to choose. Now is the time to seek him while the offer is still on the table. You will seek me and find me when you seek me with all your heart. Jeremiah 29:13. So the question is not, why won't God appear to me? The question is, am I willing to respond to God who already has? It's you sit there and say he owes you an appearance, but there's already over 1 billion people on earth who have accepted God and felt him and dealt with him and seen these things and said, yes, I know God is real.
So I mean, is there free will after death?
Free will for who after death? For the person who died?
Souls. Us.
No, of course not.
Yeah.
No.
Okay, why not?
You have free will. Well, if you're cast, first of all, if you're cast into the darkness, then what your free will means absolutely nothing, because God can't even hear you anymore after that.
But see, if God's a loving God, why wouldn't he just save everybody?
He did offer an opportunity to save everybody, but he still loves you too much to force you to want to be with him for eternity. If you're cast I
don't want to be forced.
Exactly.
All I want is just like empirical evidence. It's a very low bar.
Then
all I need is empirical evidence.
Then maybe you should really honestly try to find a way to make your mind a little bit less biased against the evidence that's there. Because how many times in this conversation alone did you make claims that I openly proved were false, and you're still like, well, I don't know. At the end of it, the entire conversation boiled down to, well, you know what? Maybe he should just show himself to me. But here's the thing. And that's what it comes down to, is that you're saying, why can't he just save everybody? He offered his own son and said, I'm going to let him be tortured and beaten to the point where his intestines are hanging out, and then they're going to crucify him. They're going to humiliate him. You know it because history says it. You know it's there. You've looked into it enough to know that it actually happened.
But we just talked about earlier, history also says that Pythagoras walked around and performed miracles. History also talks about the Lady of Fatima appearing to 500,000 people in Portugal. And this was in the newspapers, even reported by atheists. So it's like, I don't trust everything in history. Not everything in history has equal footing.
Wait, you said that history? You're saying that history claims that Pythagoras did what?
I'm saying that there are historical accounts from Pythagoras' followers that Pythagoras went around healing people and performing miracles. If you don't believe in that, then you shouldn't believe in Jesus.
So you're saying that a name that nobody even knows nowadays is the same as the actual historically verified miracles of Jesus Christ that are even spoken about by people who...
Anybody that's taking geometry knows who Pythagoras is.
Okay.
The Pythagorean theorem.
Right, I know who he is. So the so-called miracles of Pythagoras are they're late legends that are filled with mythicism and written centuries after he lived, which is funny because you tried to claim earlier that a lot of the things that were written about Jesus were centuries later, and I proved that that was untrue, right? So the historically grounded miracles of Jesus Christ, I've proven without a shadow of a doubt that these were actually not even written 6 or 7. You claimed 600-700 years, right? So here's a difference. Right. Here's the difference. And this is for everybody in the chat too. I want you guys to be ready to debunk stuff like this because this is absolutely crazy that this comparison is even being made, right? We're talking about Mr. A squared plus B squared equals C squared, right? Now, There are no eyewitnesses to the accounts of Pythagoras' miracles. Pythagoras lived around 570 to 495 BC, but the only supposed miraculous accounts come from a dude named Porphyry, which was 3rd century AD, 800 years later, and Iamblichus, a 3rd to 4th century AD, nearly 900 years later. These were not historians. They were Neapolitanists, mythicists who treated Pythagoras like a spiritual cult figure. So you're literally trying to take.
I'll give you another example.
Okay, give me another one.
Joseph Smith. Yeah, Joseph Smith, the author of the Book of Mormon.
Yeah, I know Joseph Smith.
People said that he went around healing people and performing miracles.
I
mean, that's way more recent than 2,000 years ago. How do you deal with that?
So number one, I'm going to start off with Mr. Joseph Smith. Mr. Joseph Smith is somebody who made up a lot of lies for one simple idiotic thing, and I'm going to show you, and I'm going to tell you guys why. Joseph Smith
can lie, but the apostles can't.
What? So was Joseph Smith martyred for a resurrection claim?
Was he killed in court? Yeah, he was killed in court, dude.
Okay, so
They shot him.
So Joseph Smith performed miracles, so Christianity isn't unique, supposedly, right? But the miracle claims about Joseph Smith are unverifiable, contradictory, and rooted in cult-like mythology, not historical documentation.
Kind of like the Gospels, man.
Okay, but the Gospels have all no. Okay.
Kind of criticism. You can apply the same criticism to the Book of Mormon that you can the Gospels.
No,
That's
you can't.
my point.
No, you
Is that
can't,
it's the
because you
same
have
kind of
people.
criticism.
You have people outside of the Gospels and inside of the Gospels who have verified everything that you said and that you claimed about the apostles, about Jesus Christ, about certain things that are happening, about these accounts
and you have
happening
a bunch of
centuries later.
Mormons verifying that Joseph Smith. Yeah, you have a bunch of Mormons verifying that Joseph Smith performed miracles.
Right. So
And it's the same thing, buddy.
Okay, so every so-called miracle that Joseph Smith performed, healings, prophecies, visions, comes from the Latter-day Saints' published materials, devoted followers with no outside verification, and decades after the supposed
all
events.
Jesus' miracles come from Christians. It comes from Mark, Matthew, Luke, John. These were all early Christians.
That's a lie,
Those
because
guys,
I
they're
clearly stated to you that people even outside
That
of
Josephus?
Christianity verified
Yeah.
that he performed these
Josephus,
miracles.
Tacitus?
What?
No. Tacitus claimed that people believed he performed miracles. Josephus said that there were early Christians that claimed Jesus rose from the dead. Josephus did not believe that Jesus rose from the dead. He remained a Jew until he died.
Okay. But verified that he was a man who performed miracles.
No, he
Yes.
verified that he was a man that Christians claimed performed miracles. If he believed that Jesus performed miracles, then Josephus would have become a Christian.
No, he wouldn't have.
Why wouldn't he?
Because there were a lot of people that were around Jesus Christ that didn't listen to him. You being around Jesus Christ doesn't mean you're going to listen to Jesus Christ. Josephus was, first of all, Josephus did confirm.
I think you need to read Josephus again.
Okay, so let's talk about
he's not
Josephus.
saying what you said he said.
Okay, all right. Well, here, let's find that out. Let's find that out. Josephus did confirm that Jesus performed miracles through skeptics. Those skeptics love to argue about how much of the statement was original. We'll break it down for you and show you how even non-Christian scholars admit that Josephus affirmed Jesus' existence and his miraculous reputation. So Flavius Josephus was a Jewish historian born around 37 AD, just a few years after Jesus' crucifixion. They would say about 3 or 4 years after his crucifixion. He wrote 2 major works, The Jewish War and Antiquities of the Jews in 93 AD. He was not a Christian and had no reason to promote the gospel, except that the passage in question comes from Antiquities 18.3.3, often called the Testimonium Flavium, and here's the version with supposedly likely later Christian additions removed, according to most scholars, even skeptical ones. At this time, there was a wise man named Jesus. His conduct was good, and he was known to be virtuous. Many people among the Jews and the other nations became his disciples. Pilate condemned him to be crucified and to die, but those who had become his disciples did not abandon his discipleship. They reported that he had appeared to them 3 days after his crucifixion and that he was alive accordingly, and he was perhaps the Messiah, concerning whom the prophets have recounted wonders. But here's the key to that: a doer of wonderful works. Greek paradox, ergon poetes, Translation, a worker of amazing deeds or miracles. That part is considered authentic by most scholars, even secular ones. Why? Because it fits Josephus' style, it uses non-Christian phrasing, and it doesn't call Jesus divine, just a wise man known for amazing deeds. And what do scholars say? Well, John Meyer says the phrase about Jesus being a worker of wondrous deeds is very likely original. Louis Fieldman, a Jewish scholar, another Jewish scholar, there is a broad consensus that Josephus referred to Jesus as a miracle worker. Geza Vermes, a Jewish historian, agrees that Josephus mentioned Jesus' reputation for miracles, even if Josephus himself didn't believe in them. Even the minimalist reconstruction of the text includes Jesus being known for his miraculous deeds. Now, going back to what you said about Joseph Smith.
Except here's the thing, is that we don't have any original manuscripts from Josephus when he actually first published it. The only manuscripts that we have from Josephus date to the 11th century. They were copied by Christians centuries and centuries over and over and over again. And we have good reason to be skeptical about the accounts of Josephus talking about Jesus because of all that ancient copying.
No, I
you
think
don't
that
see the bias here.
I think that your skepticism just comes from the fact that you don't want the Bible to be true. Because you say we don't have Josephus' original, so we can't trust what he wrote. Here's the reality. We don't have any original manuscripts from any ancient historian. Yet scholars worldwide still trust Josephus more than any other ancient writer. We have more copies of Josephus than most ancient writers. Over 120 extant manuscripts of antiquities of the Jews, far more than Tacitus, Suetonius, or Pliny the Younger. The oldest complete Greek manuscript dates to the 10th to 11th century, but partial Latin and Arabic translations go back even earlier, as far as the 6th century. And church fathers like Eusebius in the 4th century quoted Antiquities 18.3 long before that, confirming the passage about Jesus existed hundreds of years closer to the original. If Josephus's writings are unreliable,
I'm not arguing that Jesus existed.
Jesus
wasn't a good man.
No, we're not talking about Jesus existing or not. No, we're talking about what Josephus said about Jesus Christ being a miracle worker, right? And that's another thing, is that, again, you're back to making these claims.
A later Christian addition. Well, you're not mentioning the fact that the portion about Jesus from Josephus is known by scholars to be a Christian addition that can't be attributed to Josephus himself.
It can be. I just proved that it can be, and how can it be? So here's the thing.
You're just repeating apologetics.
No, I'm not repeating apologetics. I'm giving you the names of actual scholars, including Jewish scholars, who are stating that these writings were legitimately from Josephus. You don't like it because it disagrees with your narrative, just like you didn't like what I was saying about Joseph Smith. You tried to claim that Joseph Smith did miracles, right? Except that Joseph Smith isn't attested to by the countless sources that Jesus Christ is attested to. And you have yet to provide, one single source of information. You make grandiose claims, and then I tell you that it's not true, and I show you that it's not true, and then, oh, okay, well, we can move on to this. But here's the thing. No matter what you say, you're trying to compare, you're trying to literally sit here and say, well, I know that these things exist, but then you'll give you'll give a dishonest timeline, right? Or you'll say, well, they said the same thing about this, and then I will give you more history telling you that it's not even close to the same, right? You said that Joseph Smith performed miracles, so Christianity isn't unique, right? The miracle claims about Joseph Smith are not verifiable. Everything from him comes directly from the LDS Church. Jesus Christ was verified by the Roman Empire, okay, by the Pharisees, by countless even there's even Greek graffiti that proves that Jesus Christ, that there were people who were worshiping Jesus Christ since his crucifixion, right? The early so-called miracle Joseph Smith performed, supposedly, only comes from the Latter-day Saints Church published materials, okay, and devoted followers with no outside verification, decades after the supposed events. And there are no independent records, no external corroboration, and no critical documentation. These are the same kinds of claims we see in cults, not reliable history. And now, if you want to contrast that with Jesus, Jesus' miracles were reported by multiple gospel writers, referenced in Paul's early letters, confirmed in part by non-Christian historians like Josephus, Tacitus, and Pliny the Younger, performed in public, not behind closed doors. All right, that's another big thing that you glossed over, is that supposedly Joseph Smith's things were done, and they were done just like in these little private. No, Jesus was doing the things that he was doing in. Hold on, he was doing the things that he was doing in public.
Apostles are claiming.
No. He was doing the things that he was doing in public in front of people. That's why when the Gospels were written and people went back and started getting eyewitness accounts, there were so many that not everybody could even be put in the accounts because there was just too many people who witnessed the things that he were doing. The Latter-day Saints.
Don't buy it, man. It sounds like a tall tale.
It sounds like, you know what? It sounds like a tall tale to you because you don't want it to be true. Now, let me ask you a question. What is it about Christianity? And this, you don't have to answer the question if you don't want to. What is it about Christianity? Okay. What is the rule? What is the one thing in your life that if you were to be a Christian, if you were to follow Jesus Christ, you know that you would have to stop doing?
Oh, stop doing.
Yeah.
I'm really not a bad person, man.
Listen, everybody falls short of the glory of God. I'm not saying you're a bad person. I'm just saying, what is the one thing that you struggle with that you know you couldn't do?
More of, my father was Muslim. Okay. I grew up in a Christian household, but my father was Muslim.
Mm-hmm.
He came from a Muslim country.
Mm-hmm.
Now, he was never convinced about Jesus. He considered Jesus to be a prophet. But my father was a good man. He never was baptized, but he was a very good man. He did a lot of good things for a lot of people. I can't reconcile belonging to a faith that damns my father to hell for eternity because he happened to grow up in a different country and was raised in a culture that didn't consider Jesus to be God.
Uh-huh.
See what I'm saying?
So that's your problem with Christianity?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Because an infinite loving God, an infinite merciful God would forgive us all of our sins all the time, including at the end of our life, when we die, would grant us the opportunity to accept him and let everybody into heaven. The fact that he closes the door and Jesus gave the parable about the wedding feast, and those who didn't come on time are going to be left out, or the other parable about the wise bridesmaids who held their oil, and then the ones that didn't have any oil couldn't go to the honeymoon or whatever. I have a problem with hell. I have a problem with I look around in life and I don't see an all-loving creator making everything. I see the world as being vicious. I see a lion eating a zebra alive. And this is the way God made the world this way. He could have made the world differently so that animals couldn't or could thrive without consuming the flesh of another animal. But he didn't. He chose to make things this way. I mean, and he's all-knowing. He knows who's going to go to heaven, who's going to go to hell before, we're even born. And he chooses to make people that he knows full well will go to hell anyway. To me, that's not a loving God.
Did you finish your point? Are you done? Or
yeah.
Okay. So here's the thing. It sounds like you have a problem with God because you don't like the way he does things, right? Number one, you said, I think before you were Christian. I don't know, what information you have. Clearly, you've never read the creation story, or either that, or just kind of glossed over the fact that God did not make the world where animals had to eat each other or where people had to be the way that they are. The minute that sin was introduced and the serpent deceived Eve, that was when the world became fallen. God did not
believe in dinosaurs then?
Oh, you want to have the dinosaur conversation?
Do you believe in dinosaurs?
I don't believe in dinosaurs the way that you think.
So dinosaurs, there were no carnivorous dinosaurs?
Yes.
There were no carnivorous dinosaurs.
I didn't say there were. I said there was.
Okay. So if there were carnivorous dinosaurs, right, they ate other dinosaurs that were alive and around, right? They hunted, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And you see no problem with that.
Yes, but all of this happened after the original sin anyway, so I'm not sure what you're getting at.
Okay, so if Adam was a human being, right? And we know that human beings have been around for what, 2 million years, something like that. And dinosaurs predate us by what, 100 million years, 200 million years.
Nope. I mean, you're already wrong, but you can keep going.
Well, how am I already wrong?
All right, so here's the thing: dinosaurs debunk the Bible's creation account. Is basically what you're saying, because dinosaurs lived before that, right? This is what you're claiming.
I would consider the creation account to be a story that teaches a lesson about morality, to be a morality tale. I don't think that it necessarily needs to be a literal 7 days. Even if I was a Christian, I would believe that God created everything, and evolution was His means of creating us, and that the story, the account in Genesis, the first account and the second account, are morality tales. There would be a literal Adam, you know what I mean, and a literal Eve, but we still would have come about through the natural means of evolution.
Yeah. Okay. So here, I'm gonna break a couple of things down for you. All right. Now, a lot of people think that God made the world and He made dinosaurs, blah, blah, blah. All right. So here, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make a couple people uncomfortable here. And I know I talked about this last time I was live. Dinosaurs fit perfectly within the biblical creation model and expose serious flaws in the evolutionary timeline, especially when you examine the fossil record, soft tissue finds, and the unreliability of dating methods like carbon-14. So bullet point number 1 on that says that the Bible says dinosaurs were created with man. Genesis 1:24-31. On day 6, God created all land animals and mankind. That includes the greatest beasts of the earth, dinosaurs. The word dinosaur wasn't invented until 1841, but the Bible describes creatures like the behemoth and the leviathan, right? Job 40:15-19 and Job 41. So that's the thing. That's not poetry. Those are eyewitness accounts consistent with the existence of giant reptiles, which I'm now going to explain. Dinosaurs don't prove millions of years, they prove rapid burial. Fossils from when creatures are rapidly buried in the sediment before decay can set in, that screams global catastrophe, not slow, peaceful evolution. The fossil record is loaded with twisted, mangled creatures from mixed ecosystems, land and sea animals buried together. That's exactly what you'd expect from a global flood, not slow sediment buildup over eons, and that can be referenced in Genesis 7:11-12. All the fountains of the great deep burst forth. Bullet point number 3 on that. Soft tissue in dinosaur bones destroys the 65 million years lie. In 2005, Dr. Mary Schweitzer discovered soft, stretchy blood vessels and red blood cells inside of a T-Rex femur. Since then, over 100 cases of soft tissue in fossils have been found. Soft tissue cannot survive millions of years. Even under ideal conditions, it breaks down in thousands, not millions of years. So either the fossils are not that old, or the laws of chemistry no longer apply, which we already know which one it is, or you've got to admit that the creation model actually holds up. Bullet point number 4 on that point. Carbon dating is flawed and falsely trusted. Carbon-14 dating can only be used on organic material and is only reliable up to 50,000 years, far too short to date dinosaurs. But here's the kicker. This is my favorite. I love when people bring this up. Carbon-14 has been found in dinosaur bones, coal, and diamonds, things supposedly millions of years old. Studies by CRSQ, which is the Creation Research Society Quarterly, and others show measurable carbon-14 in samples supposedly 100 plus million years old. That should be impossible if the dates were right. But even secular labs have acknowledged that contamination is not enough to explain it. And let's not also forget that potassium, argon, and uranium lead dating methods have returned wildly inaccurate results when tested on rocks of known ages. An example is basalt from Mount St. Helens erupted in 1980 and dated to millions of years ago using potassium argon. These methods are not objective clocks. They rely on assumptions about initial conditions, decay rates, and contamination. When those assumptions are off, so are the dates. So the bottom line is that dinosaurs do not debunk the Bible. They confirm it. It definitely doesn't align up with what you were saying about God designing the earth the way that it was in the dinosaurs. And rapid fossilization, soft tissue, and carbon-14 in ancient bones destroy the evolutionary timeline, which I love doing because evolution to me is the biggest joke in the world. And carbon dating isn't just flawed, it's been proven wrong by its own standards. So when someone like you says dinosaurs disprove creation or God's intent for the way things should have been, I say not unless soft tissue can survive 65 million years and fossils bury themselves. Dinosaurs didn't debunk the Bible, they confirmed the flood. And carbon dating is about as trustworthy as a politician in campaign season. So it looks like my man left. I don't know if he disconnected, but guys, we talked about this yesterday. And awesome brothers. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me catch up on chat. I haven't looked at any of the chat today, guys. I'm so sorry, but I am very excited. We do have another channel member. If we can figure out how to manage through downfalls, we can use some of it to make us better and more creative. Amen. Yo, didn't expect you to be here today. I didn't either. I was just testing to see if I was going to actually be live on TikTok, and I guess I am. I guess I still am, but I hate that I can't see the chat, so we're going to have to figure out something as far as that. Stay Slay, awesome, brother Slurpee. Have a good one, Slurpee. Thank you so much. I don't even know if you guys are even still paying attention to the conversation or not, but you know what? It was a good one. I don't know if he left. I don't know if he's coming back, but it sounds if he left under the circumstances under which he may have if he was upset. I'm sorry, guys, but this is why I started this. I am so happy that people are bringing up points that it is so easy for me to just look out and say, you know what? No, this didn't happen this way. Let's talk about it. You know what I mean? And I'm very, very glad. And I am extremely grateful to him for coming through here. Whether or not he, he was respectful enough to concede things that he probably, thought was true and then saw that it wasn't true. But when it comes down to it, guys, we have to defend the faith and we have to tell the truth. I am not going to sit here and say that God designed the world for people to be eating, or for dinosaurs to be eating one another. And the thing about it is, with the claim that he made about Joseph Smith was, I want to go back to that because, hang on, the manuscript, Josephus. Nope, that wasn't Josephus. I want to look for what he said about Joseph Smith, because we talked about a lot. But the fact of the matter is, I don't know if he's coming back. Pythagoras. Did we talk about Pythagoras first or Joseph first? Because I think that we covered a lot. Hey, what are you doing to her? Oh. Pythagoras. No, so that's not that. Okay. So right here, guys, where it says about Joseph Smith. And the thing about Joseph Smith, too, is that when anybody says that to you, you say Joseph Smith's healings were coincidental or debunked. The Latter-day Saints claims about Joseph Smith healing the sick, especially during Zion's camp or after being tarred and feathered, are always word-of-mouth stories passed down by faithful followers, but never medically verified and never documented at the time. In fact, many of his predictions and visions failed, including the second coming, which he predicted would happen in his generation, the Temple of Zion in Missouri, which was never built, and his claim that the moon was inhabited by people dressed like Quakers. Again, so what he was talking about miracles, I have no idea, because when it comes down to it, when it came down to Joseph Smith, they were more like delusions. Usually delusional, they were lies or psychological manipulation, and we all know why. But Smith's golden plates were never produced or verified either, right? Smith claimed that an angel gave him golden plates in Reformed Egyptian, a language that doesn't even exist, and that he used seer stones in a hat to translate them while the plates were conveniently hidden. No one ever saw the plates except for a handful of loyal followers, and their testimonies were vague, inconsistent, or later recanted, right? He was convicted for fraud in 1826 for treasure digging with seer stones, the same method he supposedly used to translate the scripture. And that's not a miracle. That was just spiritual snake oil. Now, Jesus' resurrection dwarfs every claim Smith ever made. And we got to be honest about that, guys. Smith died in a gunfight after a jail riot, shooting back with a smuggled pistol. Jesus went silently to the cross, rose from the dead, and transformed the world. Smith's followers had something to gain: land, wives, and power. Yeah, land. Yeah. I would say land, wives, but Basically, he was just more interested in having as many women as he wanted. And the apostles of Jesus, they were beaten, hunted, tortured, and martyred for preaching that they saw him risen from the dead, and not one recanted. So the bottom line about the whole Joseph Smith thing, guys, was Joseph Smith's miracles were unverified, contradictory, and cult-driven. No one, I mean outside, there was no outside confirmation, no hostile witness support, and no credibility. Jesus' miracles were public, documented, and world-changing. So when an atheist says that Joseph Smith did miracles, I hit him with this. What miracle? What documentation? No witnesses, no power. He couldn't even produce the plates. Meanwhile, Jesus walked on water, raised the dead, and walked out of his own grave, then flipped the Roman Empire upside down. Joseph Smith didn't do miracles, he did misdirection. So, let's see, we're catching up. What's going on, Morningstar? We're just good, man. Yeah, it doesn't look like he's coming back. I don't think that he liked, here's the thing, guys. He's a good guy. I like him. I hope he comes back. But I don't think that he liked what I said, and I think that he was trying to kind of verify what I was saying about carbon dating and the evolutionary model and dinosaurs, and he did not like that, because I think that he was trying to look for ways to say that it's not true and didn't find it and left, or he got disconnected. I don't know. I don't care. At the end of the day, guys, we are here to do what we have to do, and that is to defend our faith. I wish that there was a way for me to check. La Pampas! But yeah, I don't know. I don't know what else to say, guys. If anybody, where was your mom showering? Oh, can you see if I'm live on TikTok still? I want to see because I don't know if anybody said anything. And I gotta look for a way to find it, because my thing is, guys, I like that I'm able to stream in the quality I want from OBS Studio to TikTok, but at the end I gotta find a way to monitor my chat for TikTok, and if there's like an app or something, I'll find it. And then also I gotta find why Rumble didn't go live, because I know 1440p streaming is, let me see, is possible. Okay, so we don't, I don't have no viewers. Okay. Is this a rerun? No, it's not. Okay. All right. So nobody chatted. Okay, cool. All right. So they don't, so that's fine. No problem. Thank you, mommy. So we're okay. So I want to make sure we're still live on TikTok. We are, and we will look unrighteousness in them that perish, because they received not the love of truth, that they might be saved. And for this cause, God shall send them strong delusion, that they should believe a lie. Here's the thing, guys. I am not going to stop doing what I'm doing, but more than that, you guys' support is amazing. I wasn't even going to do this today. It was more like a test stream to see if I was going to have any issues. I don't have any issues with TikTok. Just got to find out how I'm going to look at my chat. And Rumble, I definitely got to figure out, because I know 1440p streaming is possible. If not, I will just go to streaming to another platform, and I will just do my uploaded content to Rumble, or find some kind of other means of streaming there. I don't know. I don't care at this point. Maybe, I already kind of have an idea in the back of my mind of what I'm going to do with that. I promise to make it a stream. And Morningstar, listen, my thing is, I want you to have a relationship with Jesus Christ. That's my ultimate goal. I don't want anybody to feel like they have to be here all the time and dedicate all their time. That's not what this is for. I want to bring the glory to Jesus Christ, who is the only one who deserves the glory, right? And we love having you here, Mr. Morningstar. I'm looking forward to seeing you and everyone else here. Absolutely, brother Mike. And I'm glad. Here, guys, before I get off, just if you guys want to rate my my performance in the debate, in the conversation, if you guys feel that there was anything I should do different, let me know in the chat right now. I'll wait like another 2 or 3 minutes. Tell me, guys, on YouTube Shorts Live or regular YouTube Live or TikTok, if there's anything you guys think that I should do differently. If there was anything that I didn't address that you think I should have. If you didn't like my performance, if you think that it was good, let me know. I just want to know if the conversation and the rebuttals and everything were things that, did anybody learn anything? Is there anything that you guys want to see me do different in these conversations? Because these are conversations that need to be had. And I felt like, the guy left, and I don't know why. I'm hoping that, he's not upset or anything like that. I feel like maybe, he didn't, I don't think he expected a lot of the stuff that I was saying about the claims for dinosaurs and carbon dating and evolution and stuff like that. But I just want you guys, anybody, especially Mike Morningstar, Cadillac, again, thank you so much for becoming a channel member. That means the world to me. Because that's basically like the ultimate form of loyalty on YouTube, right? You join and become a channel sponsor. So thank you so very much for that. Still waiting. If nobody has anything to say about it, no problem too. But I would, like I said, I would like to know if you guys liked the way that the points were debunked. If you found anything of value educationally from the conversation, if you feel like you can use any one of these things or any one of the talking points that I used, or the history or the sources or the archaeology or whatever the case may be, to defend, typical atheist lies, because that's at the end of the day, guys, I don't feel like atheists are liars, but I feel like the entirety of the foundation of atheism is based on a lie. And it is. It's the fact that they think that God doesn't exist, or at the very least that the God of the Bible doesn't exist, or that he's some evil monster or whatever. 10 plus on content, research, and overall knowledge. Thank you, Cadillac. I appreciate that. Brother Mike says it did seem a little heated, but there was a lot of interruptions. Okay, Brother Mike. So what do you want me to do different? Like, what do you want me to do better? Yes, we are a family hero. So are you? Do you? If I interrupted too much, let me know. If you think that he interrupted me a lot, or it's gonna seem heated. Like there's not gonna be any doubt about that. Yeah, I know he definitely was getting heated. He didn't like, I don't think he expected me to have, I don't know, maybe that's an atheist thing. Maybe they think they're going to go into Christian channels and, get these kind of gotcha aha moments. But, yeah, I don't open myself up to conversations so that I can, when the Holy Spirit speaks through you, it was between both of you. Yeah, it was between both of you. I know there was passion. So, Brother Mike, I would take away from that probably let them finish more. Yeah, the passion and the heated discussions that's always going to be like that. No matter what, that's just how people get. And even when it was, you could watch old debates between like Christopher Hitchens and Frank Turek and so many other people, and that's par for the course. Because people naturally don't like to be challenged, especially when they have this talking point that they feel like is going to be like this hammer, like, aha, I got your moment, and then it turns out to not be. Oh, I love that. I got the Insta 360 on this side, guys, so now the camera follows me, because I hated that there was times where I was getting cut off. But yeah, if you think that I need to interrupt less, then definitely let me know. Or if you think it was but Brother Maverick, you did a good letting him speak and him letting. Oh, okay, cool. All right. So as long as it was concise and you guys understood what point was being rebutted, and that's the thing too, is that there was a lot, that he would say a lot, and I would literally just read briefs that were bullet point one after another that would just, kind of dismantle, like, and he was making a lot of false claims, and I get that. I get that if you're so used to making false claims that it kind of makes people stand back, then that's what you're used to doing, and then that's all you do, and then you're done, But at the end of the day, we cannot allow that if we really think, if we are really going to be defenders of the faith. Thank you, Morningstar. I appreciate it. Although heated, the flow was great. All right, good, Cadillac. That's what I wanted. Thank you, Mr. Morningstar. I appreciate it. Yeah, like I said, at the end, it looked like the last point when we were talking. So maybe he didn't know a lot of the stuff that I was reading off about. The first bullet point was that the Bible says dinosaurs are created with man, and then the second one was that dinosaurs don't prove millions of years; they prove rapid burial. The third was that soft tissue in dinosaur bones destroys a 65 million years lie, and the fourth was that carbon dating is flawed and falsely trusted. And then we give him a couple of bottom lines. And I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking that what ended up happening was, I think that he wanted to prove some of the things wrong that I was saying and wasn't able to quickly enough and just left, or he just lost connection. I don't know. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I'm going to, pretend to know, what's going on as far as his mindset, but it doesn't matter. Yeah, I understand that he was bringing up a lot of things and not letting you answer them to interrupt you. Yeah. And that's the thing too. I don't, that's fine, because I'm able to retain a lot of information, and I will get to it, or at the very least, I will answer what I think is the most important, like whatever the most egregious lie was. You know what I mean? Yeah, I believe Brother Maverick did good with it. I'm just saying little minute things. Yeah, for sure. No, that's why I'm asking, Brother Mike. that doesn't offend me. I'm asking because I want you guys input. I want you guys feedback. You know what I mean? And I will do better in the future to try to make sure that I'm not interrupting. Unless and here's the thing though, guys, I will interrupt if you're telling an outright bold lie or a bold-faced lie or an egregious lie. I'm gonna interrupt that. But other than that, I thought for me, I was actually surprised that I let him go on for as long with a lot of the things that he did as I did, because that's just not in my nature. But if you're gonna have good faith conversations, then you can't just try to walk all over somebody all the time, because it doesn't, that's just a sign of a weak opponent, in my opinion. No, I agree. Yeah, he told, I'm not going to call him a liar, but a lot of the things that he said were false. And that's why I kept challenging him to at least give me some text. Give me something. What are you talking about? 600-700 years after? What do you mean? The stuff with the disciples. And then, he claimed that if you can read the Gospels, right? And I'll even bring this up. Hang on. He made a claim that the Gospels were written to glorify the disciples, right? To bolster their own reputation. But and I actually didn't get to this. But the Gospels ruthlessly expose the disciples' failures, doubts, pride, fear, and flat out stupidity. If anything, they're a lesson on how not to write a self-promotion piece. The disciples are consistently portrayed as clueless and cowardly, right? And just as a few examples, they constantly misunderstood Jesus, Mark 9:32. Peter rebukes Jesus and gets called Satan, Matthew 16:23. James and John argue about who's the greatest, Mark 10:35-45. They fall asleep in Jesus' greatest hour of need, Matthew 26:40 and 41. Peter denies Jesus 3 times, Luke 22:54-62. They all abandon him during the crucifixion, Mark 14:50. That's not a self-promotion, people. That's spiritual face planting, like in 4K, 8K if you got it, right? Now, no one fabricating a lie makes themselves look this weak. If you are trying to build a fake religion and elevate your leaders, you don't portray them as fools. You don't include stories where they deny the central figure. And you don't make the first witness of the resurrection women in a culture where female testimony wasn't even legally valid. That is what we call the criterion of embarrassment. Historians trust sources more when they include details that hurt their credibility, because liars don't write stories that make themselves look bad. Which brings me to bullet point number 3. This actually confirms the Gospel's authenticity. The Gospels don't glorify the disciples. They highlight their transformation. Before the resurrection, cowards and doubters. After the resurrection, bold preachers who face torture and death. If they were making it up, they'd have written themselves as brave, loyal heroes who never wavered. Instead, they come off looking like spiritually blind toddlers. And why? Because that is what really happened. And they were honest enough to admit it. So the bottom line for that point that he tried to make was the Gospels do not make the disciples look good. They make them look broken, flawed, and in desperate need of grace. That's not propaganda. That's authenticity. And their transformation wasn't because of spin. It was because they saw the risen Christ. So when someone says the disciples make themselves look good, well, all you guys got to say is really because they look more like the Three Stooges than spiritual Avengers. If they were making it up, they did a terrible job selling themselves, but a perfect job at telling the truth. All right, Brother Morningstar, have a good night, man. I think he was uninformed on a lot of things. Yeah, Brother Mike. And that's the thing, is that when you have spiritual blindness, you're gonna purposely stay uninformed about things. That's just how it is. You know what I mean? You don't want these things to be true, and they don't, and they know that they're not true. And I would even argue that a lot of them don't know necessarily that they're not true, but they read it once, they like what they hear, and they say that it's gonna stay true. You know what I mean? Daniel Sturge, what is up, man? I don't know if you caught, man. We were debating for like an hour or two. We were on here for a bit. Yeah, now I've been on for an hour and 48 minutes. So. Yeah, we were we had a very intense conversation in here, and the side of Christianity and its history definitely won out, and not because it's about winning arguments, but I am very grateful to God for the opportunity to defend Christian history and give actual facts in lieu of just the random atheist talking points that are just basically a lot of, oh well, God should just show himself to me. No, he shouldn't. If God shows himself in his full glory to the entirety of the world, everybody's going to believe in him. And then now the faith is for nothing, right? But that's what atheists want. They want God rather, to show himself and make it easy for everybody so that everybody can just believe and everybody goes to heaven and nobody has to do any work. And that is the common theme in today's culture, that everybody wants everything easy and nobody wants to work for a damn thing and nobody wants to do anything for themselves and everybody wants God to do the legwork for them, right? Everybody wants God to do everything. If he was such a loving God, everybody would go to heaven. But here's the problem. Not everybody wants to go to heaven. You have people who will sit there and look you straight in the face and say they don't want to go to heaven. They love more their lust. They love more their homosexuality, their transgenderism, their abortion, their gluttony, their drugs, their alcohol. That is their God. And they won't give it up for anybody. And the only way they would give it up, without a doubt, is if God were to show himself and say, hey, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to show myself to everybody. But then that removes all the work. Now there is no faith required. You know, everyone wants the narrow path from taking the wide. Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing. That's the thing. That's what he doesn't understand. You know what I mean? He doesn't want, he says, well, he appeared to Moses, whatever. He never appeared to anybody in his true form. He appeared to Moses in a burning bush. You know what I mean? Like, so anyways, guys, this was a great conversation tonight. I need to go ahead and jump in the shower because my wife and I are going to get up early and go to the gym and stuff. So thank you guys all so much, man. Love you guys. Appreciate you guys. Be safe, be good, be blessed. Thank you again to my new channel member. Thank you, brother Mike. Thank you, brother Daniel. Thank you, Morningstar. Thank you, Slurpee. Thank you to all my usuals. Really appreciate you guys, man. Love you guys. And I will talk to you soon. Peace, man.